So let me ask a question around data, because it seems like so much of this does revolve around sort of this rich data that, first-party data that Comcast has, other DMP data that you guys may be drawing on. Where do you see the trail of who owns what data and how it gets leveraged? Do you think that the publishers should be managing that data? Should you and your agency colleagues be the ones doing the intelligence gathering from the data? How do you sort of see us managing this role across all these different people in the ecosystem?
So because I'm on the marketing side, I'm going to say first-party data comes first. Clients like Comcast, who sit on a ton of data on their clients, the CRM level data, they can onboard, activate, that's great. When you're a client like Heineken, for example, that doesn't have a CRM data, we got to get much more creative about how do you create those first-party segments. But control and transparency is what it's all about. Understanding how the segment was created is at the core of understanding which data is right for you. Not all data is created equal. So if you know where the information came from, then you're that much better at executing the campaign. I'm not discounting the importance of publisher level data or third-party level data that can come to us from Axioms or Blue Skies or other platforms out there, but it's almost like you create a dossier of a user you want to go after. You start with what you know. And what you know is your first-party data. And then you keep adding on top of that. You keep adding additional information because you don't know everything about this person. And for whatever campaign you want to do, you may want to learn something you didn't know about before. So that information can come to you from your partner, like a publisher, or it can come from a third-party vendor.
Let's talk a little bit about the sort of creative side. So obviously, one of the things I've heard said is that in the era of programmatic, people have sort of lost sight of the importance of creative. Is it possible? How does native kind of bring the creative back into the equation again? What are some ways that you guys are seeing? Maybe I'll ask Craig that, because you're someone who's obviously seen that with some of your clients. How are you seeing native bring back the importance of creative?
Sure. Well, I think it's so easy to do programmatic badly, like just terribly. You just turn it on and it goes, and hey, look, there was our ad. So it does not remove us from having to really think carefully about what we're trying to do, which is what Oleg was saying, is to start back with what are we actually trying to achieve, and then which tools are most appropriate. And in the point of native, I do think, at least right now, we have this window of time where consumers aren't blind to it. They do see it, and we actually even see platforms and partners out there who are restricting access to different new units to make sure the creative makes sense, that it's not, that it's high quality, et cetera. I'm not saying everyone has the ability to do that, but I would say strongly that it's on all of us to make sure we don't just replicate the issues that we had in display, and something that we were talking about back then.
Yeah, I want you to expand on that, because I know in the green room you were talking a little bit about not making the mistakes that we've made with display with some of these newer paths.
It's almost like there's this, whenever you try something new, you tend to fall back on what seems obvious, but it's not. When you go through a history and you've seen what worked, what didn't work, kind of going back and looking at it, it's important. For example, programmatic exploded, and we almost like conveniently forgot how important content is. Yeah. Because we needed scale, we needed reach, so it's like, yeah, it's all about the audience. Don't worry about the content. Well, that's not true. Absolutely, it's not true. Newspapers and print and magazines have been in business for 200 or however many years, selling messages next to a very specific set of content, and it worked. Native potentially can bring us back to that.
I think very much that we're finally getting out of the fascination phase with data and into the application, right? So when it was a very engineering-oriented, let's talk about how many peta, zeta, yada, et cetera bytes that there are, the marketers were bored out of their minds. They didn't care about that, right? What they care about is examples like this and other examples that we talked about. And so I'm optimistic that native is a tool that will be much more appealing to someone who's from a creative background, who's from a marketing background, and sees the potential.
And considering that these marketers are creating their own content themselves, you need to find new ways to distribute it, but leveraging the same methods. So you can have the same kind of guiding stick, almost the same methodology to measure whether what worked or what didn't work.
So before we open up to maybe a couple of questions from the audience, maybe I want to ask a little bit about what is probably the world's most powerful creative medium, video. So if we didn't have enough buzzwords up here with programmatic and native, maybe we can throw mobile into the equation somehow. But we were talking a bit earlier about video. You know, Craig, what would native video even mean? What would programmatic native video even mean beyond just a great way to pitch a client on the next new thing?
I'll throw linear too.
Linear on top. Linear, programmatic, native on demand. You know, honestly, I think you can look at what happens in a lot of the sports world as maybe not the best example of that, but something where so-and-so brought to you by so-and-so, you know, you have that a lot. It's because of the time required to authentically get that done. It's just, first of all, the plumbing is just not there yet, right? So you can do it in a few different instances, and there are a lot of people standing on a lot of stages this week that will use that word programmatic and talk about what they're building for themselves, which is great. It's one step along a very long path. So unfortunately, I still go back to the whole, what are you trying to achieve? How do you do it? I don't think we're at a lack for tools out there. Mm-hmm. I do definitely see eventually that last domino falling into having the world unleashed upon linear, programmatic, native on mobile and television.